Hi, thank you for joining me. This is Terry Duncan with Cut, Color, and Create. And today we're going to take a look at the new Sizzix Stencil and Stamp Tool. As you can see, it's beautiful. The top comes off, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it today. I'm just going to set that top aside for now, and we're going to talk about some of the things that this tool has to offer. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's a sticky mat that comes with it, and actually it's a replaceable sticky mat. So you have a cover sheet that you can protect it with, and they suggest that you always keep it with it. But then when you remove it, you've got this beautiful tacky surface, and it's got a grid on it. It's quite large, and as I make this a little bit larger for you, you can see that I've got markings on mine. I like to mark where the A2 size card would be centered on the work surface. Now we're going to take a look at the tool that you use to be able to reuse your stencils over and over again. You can see that it's got 4 positions that you can place your stencils in. At first I didn't know what those 4 places were, but they attach over the hinge and you have 4 different positions depending on the size of your stencils. You can see that they lay right over and then hold it tight. Now we're going to use the converters that you can buy separately from the tool that allow you to use your stencils made by companies other than Sizzix. There are 10 to a package, and as you can see, they're not very big, but they're made out of the same material that stencils are, but they're heavier. They're a heavy-duty plastic. You place them on the little pegs that are on the stencil tool, and then you can see there's a little piece of adhesive there on the edge that you can use. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is establish where the stencils are going to be in order to attach them to those connectors. And so we measured with the stencil. Now we're putting down our A2 card base, and then we're laying down the stencil over the converter and attaching it to the little adhesive piece. Now we're going to lift that off of the tool, and we're going to repeat the same process with the other 4 stencils that we're going to use with our set. I'm going to speed this up and play a little music for you while we finish attaching the converters to all of the stencils. Now we can begin to do our stenciling. Now that we've got our stencils all attached to the converters, you see I'm getting all the different layers together and select the very first layer to begin with. So I've got it placed in on my tool, and I'm kind of fastening the stencil down onto the sticky mat, and then I'm getting out the ink that I'm going to be using for the project that I'm using. So I'm using Gina K inks. I'm using Peach Bellini, Dusty Rose, Cherry Red, Lucky Clover, and Christmas Pine. Okay, so let's move those out of the way so we can get started with our blending. So I'm going to begin with the Lucky Clover for this first layer, and I'm just going to pick up a little ink on my brush, going to dab it off on the stencil, and then I'll begin to blend over the stencil. And I'm just going with a light touch to initially. And then what I like to do is go back in once I've got the first layer down and add in a little more color towards the base to give it a little dimension. Now I'm going to remove that stencil, and it just pops up like that, just like when we were establishing where they were going to attach to the converters. Now we go with our second layer, and you want to make sure that you have all your stencils lined up and ready to use in the position that you want them in. You can see that I'm kind of struggling trying to determine if I've got the right side of the stencil on. But I finally got it figured out, and now we're on to the second stencil. And for this one we're using the Christmas Pine, a little darker color, and we're going to use the same blending brush and use the same process we did for the first layer. Now I'm just going to speed up the video a little bit and let you listen and watch while I finish stenciling each of the layers. Take a little sneak peek. Isn't that pretty? And you can see just how easy it was to get all the layers lined up. It takes a little time to initially set up the converter strips. Of course, you don't have to do that if you've got Sizzix stencils, but once you have it all set up, then you can use those stencil layers over and over again to produce such a beautiful image. So I really recommend the tool for stenciling. Now I want to show you how you use the tool for stenciling. You can see the cover has a nice grid engraved in the top. It fastens right on the hinge, just like that. I'm going to use a stamp with a really fine sentiment to show you what a beautiful job that the tool does when you're stamping. So you can see I'm using this stamp set from Tonic. It's got all kinds of choices of happy birthday greetings, but I choose this nice thin lettering down at the bottom so that I can show you how great it works. I struggle with getting sentiment straight, so I use a product called the Transparency Grid from Simon Says Stamp to make sure that I get my sentiment straight. It's just an acrylic piece with a grid on it, and you line up your sentiment on that grid, get it set right where you want it, and then you can lower the lid over the top of that, pick up the stamp with your lid, and lift it off. Now it's time to ink up our stamp. I always like to use Altenew Obsidian Pigment ink for stamping my sentiments. So I'm loading that ink onto the stamp on the lid, then I'm lowering the lid down over the card, lightly pressing on the sentiment, not too much or it'll spread out the ink, but look at what a beautiful job that tool does to add your sentiment. That's just one time and it's done a beautiful job, and that's happened every time I've used the tool. So there you have it, a quick look at how the new Sizzix Stencil and Stamp Tool works. I'm very impressed with it. I recommend that you try it. I think you'll love it. Thanks for joining me, and see you soon.